When we think about the Day of Judgment, we usually picture this huge single moment of reckoning, right? But what if it's way more structured than that? What if it's less like a simple tally of your good and bad deeds and more like a meticulous final legal proceeding? Today, we're going to dive into the Islamic concept of the afterlife as the ultimate courtroom drama. And it all starts with this powerful image, a day so intense, so overwhelming, that every single bond we cherish in this life, family, friends, you name it, it all just dissolves. On this day, you're on your own. It's just you and your case file, and you are absolutely terrified of what claims other people might have against you. So let's really lean into that question. For a minute, I want you to just set aside everything you think you know about a final judgment. Instead, picture this with me: a divine courtroom where every single soul is summoned, every injustice is finally heard, and every right is perfectly restored. So in Islamic tradition, this day actually has a specific name, Yom al-Farar, which means the day of escape. But here's the crazy twist. It's not an escape from judgment. No, it's an escape from each other. Every soul literally flees from the people they once loved because the only thing that matters anymore is the unchangeable record of their own life. Okay, so how does this all kick off? Well, it starts with a summons. And let me be clear, this is not an optional appearance. This is the final mandatory court date for every single soul that has ever walked the earth. No exceptions, no shows are not a thing. This verse from the Quran, this is basically that universal summons. And what's so powerful here is that this was revealed directly to the Prophet Muhammad himself. The message is crystal clear. Death comes for everyone, and for every single person, even the most righteous. It's just the beginning of this divine legal process. Now, when we hear that word dispute, our minds probably jump to an argument, right? Or maybe a debate where two people present their side of the story. But you have to understand, what's happening in this divine court is way, way more serious than that. See, this dispute is actually the official prosecution of all our moral debts. When the Prophet's companion, Az-Zubayr, heard this, he was stunned. He asked, "You mean the wrongs from this life will be brought up all over again?" And the Prophet said, "Yes, absolutely, until everyone who is owed a right gets that right restored to them." Az-Zubayr's reaction was just pure shock. He said, "By Allah, this is a very serious matter." So in this divine courtroom, who are the prosecutors? Well, the first one is probably going to surprise you. It's not an angel. It's not another person. The very first to rise and testify against someone will be the Holy Book itself. This verse right here shows us the Quran's role. It's not just a passive book of guidance. It's a living witness. On that day, the Prophet will present its complaint to God, that his people took it as something to be abandoned, whether that meant not reading it, not trying to understand it, or worst of all, not living by what it teaches. Just let that sink in for a second. The very source of divine guidance, the revelation, becomes the primary prosecutor. To ignore its message means you'll find yourself on trial, with the word of God testifying directly against you. I mean, that is a level of accountability that is just profound. Now, beyond the divine revelation, there's another group of prosecutors, and these are the ones you might expect, the human victims. In this ultimate court, every single person who suffered an injustice on earth finally gets their turn on the stand. Their powerlessness in this world is gone, replaced by the undeniable truth of their pain. Just try to imagine the scene the Prophet described. A murder victim will come on the day of judgment, literally dragging their killer, with blood still pouring from their wounds. They will walk right up to the divine throne and say, simply and directly, "O Lord, he killed me." That's it. No lawyers, no legal loopholes, just the raw, unfiltered truth. And this is where every single earthly injustice finally gets settled. Every cold case, every crime that went unpunished, it's all reopened before the ultimate judge. A delay of justice in this world is not an acquittal in the next. The divine case file is never, ever closed. So, how are these debts actually paid? How are these cases settled? The concept is explained through this powerful and honestly terrifying metaphor: moral bankruptcy. And get this, it has nothing to do with money. It's all about the only currency that matters then: your good deeds and your bad deeds. To explain this whole idea, the Prophet once asked his companions a question. It was a question designed to completely shatter their worldly ideas of wealth and poverty. He just asked them, "Do you know who is poor?"
And of course, they gave the obvious answer. Someone with no money, no stuff. But he was about to teach them a much, much deeper lesson.
This is what the prophet called true poverty. Look at step 1. A person shows up on that day with what looks like a mountain of spiritual wealth. Prayers, fasting, charity. They think they're golden. But then the accusations start. One by one, their victims step forward. And the repayment isn't money. It's their good deeds. Their good deeds are literally transferred, one by one, to settle the accounts of those they wronged. And what happens when that mountain of good deeds is completely gone, but there's still debts to be paid? That's it. That's moral bankruptcy. And the sentence is severe. The sins of their remaining victims are piled onto them, and then they're cast into the fire.
And really, that brings us to the final sobering thought here. This whole proceeding, this divine prosecution, it's all about ultimate individual accountability. It shows us that our relationship with God is completely tied to our relationships with other people. So, the question this all leaves us with is a deeply personal one. On that day, when every bond breaks and you're standing all alone with your deeds, what will your case file say?